Right, today is the day where we get to blame Texas for everything. Yay! No, we're not talking about 2021 and power grids. We're talking about the origins of Texas. Yes, the state of Texas, the place where you've been, where everything is bigger. Everything's bigger in Texas, right? There's bigger cities, bigger buildings, bigger farms, bigger trucks, bigger beds. Like literally, there's like a Texas size mattress or something. No, okay. Everything's bigger in Texas. But where did like this concept come from? And to be honest, for the rest of us, why do we even care? Well, to know that, we need to know a little bit about Texas. Texas is very unique in its history in the sake that it is the only state that prior to becoming a state in the United States was actually, literally, to fact, its own country. Yes, you heard that right. Texas was its own country. It was referred to as the Republic of Texas. And of course, like all good things, the history of Texas helps sets us up for the Civil War. Follow me here. So, in 1821, we have to think about the history of Mexico a little bit. In 1821, Mexico won its independence from Spain. You think our Revolutionary War was impressive? Dude, try pitchforks against the Spanish Armada. It was a huge revolution and a huge win for the people of Mexico. All right. So Mexico wins their independence. Yay, we're our own country. The thing to remember, though, is Mexico today does not look like Mexico of the past. In fact, when Mexico became its own country, it included the modern-day states of California, New Mexico, and, yes, Texas. Okay? So, that was in 1821. Here's the thing about Texas, though. Texas at that time was barren, empty. There was nobody and nothing. I mean, kind of like what Texas is today without the cities. There was nothing there at all. So the people who settled in Texas, a lot of them coming from the United States, thought to themselves, well, heck, let's just bring all of our friends. So by 1830, there were 7,000 settlers in Texas that were from the United States. Okay, now Texas at this point is still Mexican territory, so Mexican Texas. Now tensions started to grow, though, between the Mexican government and the settlers. No surprise here, right? So Mexico, ironically, kind of like in modern day time, tries to halt further immigration and pushes the settlers back against Mexican legal code. Says, go back home. You're not welcome here, right? So some of the laws that were required when living in Mexican Texas included converting to Roman Catholicism. So that's a religious piece right there. Also, please remember, why did the United States become the United States? Yeah, one of the major reasons, religious freedom. So you had to become a Roman Catholic. You had to file all your legal documents in Spanish, and you had to end the practice of slavery. Okay, now that's like a caveat or like an asterisk there because it says in slavery, but at the same time, Mexico allows settlers from the United States to bring slaves in as indentured servants. Either way, the settlers of Texas were not thrilled about this because they didn't want to file all their papers in Spanish. Okay. They definitely did not want to convert to Roman Catholicism because that would be like the freedom of religion problem, hence their First Amendment in the United States. They're losing that, right? And then, of course, you have the whole slavery debacle on top of that. So in 1835, the people of Texas, the settlers who came in from the United States, decided, you know what? 100 years ago, we watched some folks in Boston and Philadelphia cause some chaos and make their own country. Let's do the same thing. So the people of Texas got together and created their own provisional form of government. In 1836, they declared their independence. Yes, this is just like the Revolutionary War, but on a smaller scale dealing with Texas. The Mexican government deployed a leader. His name was Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, and his troops into the region to put it down, right? So the settlers from Texas, from the United States, together with the active support from the people of Spanish origin that lived in Texas, they're called Tianos, they fought to hold their ground against this literally military marching towards them. In March into 1836, following a 13-day siege, that's when you cut off all the supplies to you starve somebody out, basically. Santa Anna's troops attacked and killed 187 Americans, right? Antietam defenders at what is called the Battle of the Alamo. So when you hear someone say, "Remember the Alamo," or the Alamo Dome, like where they played sports, like all that has to do with the Alamo, which was a fort that existed, that was the stronghold in present-day San Antonio, that many Texans and Americans died fighting for Texan independence against Mexico. Yeah. If your brain is going, what? You're right. Okay. So here's the thing. Some of the famous people like Davy Crockett, who is known as like a wild man in the United States, who didn't really enjoy government, went to live out on his own. He's a Wild West explorer, like a big thing. People like Davy Crockett wound up getting killed in this battle, which was a big deal. So then they came up with the phrase, "Remember the Alamo," which became a battle cry about how important it was for Texas to declare their independence. Remember the Alamo. Remember the people who laid down their lives for us. We have to become our own nation. Yay. However, with that said, Sam Houston, a random dude, originally from Tennessee, I believe, led his forces to defeat the Santa Anna's army at the Battle of San Jacinto, forced Santa Anna to recognize Texas independence. So Sam Houston comes in with his troops, smacks around Santa Anna. Santa Anna says, all right, we give Uncle, you're your own nation, congratulations. So when that happened, what's probably most important about that is when Texas declared its independence, it was almost immediate that the citizens of Texas are like, yeah, we get it, we're our own nation, but seriously, we want to become part of the United States. Can we become a state now? Right. So that's where we're at. So Texas winds up becoming the 28th state. Now, here's where one of the big issues comes up. This is the Civil War piece, if you will. The people, politicians, and the public were divided on whether or not Texas should be a slave state or a non-slave state, right? So it became this political debacle, basically. Texas winds up becoming pro-slavery. When that happens, it becomes this force of reckoning for the North, or later it would be the Union, of saying, well, fine, you got Texas. Any other state that we pull in, like Oregon, is going to be a free state. All right. So President John Tyler, not known for a lot in the U.S. history, he made the annexation of Texas a priority. Closing days of presidency, Congress votes to make Texas a state. Yay. It really wasn't until James Polk was in office after that Texas formally becomes a state in the end of 1845. Now, that was not the end of things. That's where we go, yay, Texas is part of us, the end. Mexico was not happy about this at all. That was not the end of the story. In spring of 1846, the United States and Mexico decide, yes, this actually happened, to go to war. And it was referred to as the Mexican-American War. Very original. It started in part of a border dispute of trying to figure out, like, where's the actual border between Texas and Mexico? Which river was it? Was it the Nueces River or was it the Rio Grande River, right? That's where the fighting was. Needless to say, it didn't last very long. The United States slapped the snot out of the Mexican army. They retreated, and to this day, that is why the Rio Grande is the actual border between Texas and Mexico. So there you go. We have a state in the United States, Texas, who actually was originally part of Mexico when Mexico declared its independence from Spain, revolted, instituted its own government, became its own country, then became part of the United States, then was fought over on whether or not it was going to be a slave state or a free state. And then after that was decided, Mexico comes back and decides, we want to fight you about this anyways. And this is the last time you see a battle take place between Mexico and the United States. We'll see Mexico pop up again in World War I, but not in the same perspective as they did here. So while Mexico did enjoy its independence, some land was lost because of what took place with the United States. We wind up getting New Mexico, we get California, Arizona-ish, and most probably notably between California, we also end up getting Texas. So there you go. This is key and important. The reason that this is important is not because, like, yay, Texas. No. The reason it's important is because this is one of the building blocks leading up to the Civil War. As more states come in, as we continue to expand, the United States continues to grapple with this debate on, okay, the state coming in, should it be a slave state? Should it be a free state? Should it be north of any agreements that we have? Should it be part of the Union? Should it be part of the South? What kind of resentment's going to be there? Because as you know, we're going to find out Texas secedes with the rest of the Confederacy in the Civil War. They're like, peace out. We'll make our own country again because, yeah, that's what Texas does. In case you're curious, the state legislation of Texas to this day still says they can break away and become a country whenever they want. They just know better because it would fail miserably. So there you go. The story of Texas summed up shortly. Important to know about, curiosities abound, and also creates a question of what would have happened if we wouldn't have gotten Texas? And how has that influenced us in the modern day? Don't know. And how to set the standards or set the expectations for the Civil War that was going to come about in about 20 years after this. Ta-da! Texas.